What's up, guys? It's Dynasty from the Mountaintops. I'm Nikki. We got Jeremy here. Jimmy is nowhere to be found. Maybe too much fun on New Year's Eve. And we also have the champ from the Golf League joining us. Tom, how you doing today?
Good. How we doing?
Doing well, man. Of course, since you were the guest, I had to ask you first. But Jeremy, how are you today as well?
I'm doing great, man. 2025, start of a new year. Let's detox the old and let's get at it.
That's it, brother. I hear you. I didn't want you to get mad at me for like Jimmy does whenever I don't ask him first. So.
There's a difference between James and I. Like he is very egotistical. I am just here for the fun and camaraderie.
There you go. Absolutely, that's very true. You are definitely here for the fun. So what we're going to talk about today is obviously pick the champ's brain so I can win the championship next year. No, I'm just kidding, Tom. And that's going to be the fantasy football team, Tom here. So, and then we're going to talk about what we kind of all agree in consensus is the biggest player in the playoffs, at least, for his team, which is Baker Mayfield, who absolutely went off the last couple weeks. And then we'll talk about a year in review. And hopefully Jim joins us at some point. We'll see.
Not happening.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Which is funny because he's the one who actually set this time. So anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, we're going to, like I said, talk to Tom here. Your strategy going into the year, I guess, first. Rather than talk about how you won the championship, we'll talk about kind of what you were thinking going into the year.
Yeah, honestly, I've never been in like a dynasty league, so I didn't really know my strategy kind of going into the draft, how to what to do, who to pick. Do I trade some picks? Do I keep some? Kind of go all in. So I didn't trade too much, and just kind of drafted guys who I thought would be good. Long term, like I got Jordan Love early, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, guys like Devontae Smith who were kind of young on contracts. And then I think kind of around week 4, I kind of realized, okay, I think I have a team who can compete. I don't know if I can win it all, but I have a team who can compete. And I noticed, I would say maybe half the league was going for picks and going for the future. So I was like, you know what? I think I don't know if I can win it, just knowing how some good teams out there. But I was like, I had a good team, and I would have been upset with myself if I didn't do anything or move the needle with anything. And that's why I had to make some trades throughout the year and kind of mortgage my future a little bit. But, I think when you win at the end, it, kind of hindsight, with trading all those draft picks away.
No, I think you made actually great points to it, and just a vague synopsis of the team. Like, you got some heavy hitters. Like, you can go back and reflect on the past fantasy season, and once this is all said and done, the dust has settled. And I think you could argue that you have probably 3 to 4 of the top 10 players with the Barkleys, with the Jonathan Taylors, the Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, I mean, you have yourself a legitimate roster here. So, yeah, I fully support the moves you made. You got youth here. You still have some picks affiliated with 2025, be it later, but you still have some draft capital. So I believe you handled it very well.
And the worst part about this whole entire team here, Tom, for everybody else in the league, is that they're young. You don't have a lot of old guys on this team. So
for the most part, they're pretty
nice.
Young. I mean, Rodgers, kind of a backup QB, and Ezekiel Elliott are kind of guys that might not be around in the next 1 to 2 years. But other than that, I mean, barring any injuries, it should be a stacked.
You're in a situation where, like, you can count on one hand players that might not return next year, and that's a fantastic situation, especially as a returning champ.
Yeah, can't be too mad about that. Just got to draft well and kind of replace some of the guys. Like Rodgers might not be around next year. I'd like to get a QB to at least a decent backup like he was.
And I support that. And again, to reflect on the mortgaging your future, to blade on Mickey's point, it's not necessarily a mortgage of the future when you have yourself such a median age of youth. Your draft capital is gone, but you still have a solid core for future.
Yep, I agree.
And one thing you said was making a few moves throughout the season. So I kind of wanted to know what you thought either your biggest move was or maybe 1 or 2 of your biggest moves that really changed the season for you. Because you started out hot to begin with, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, I had to play you early in the season and lost, of course. So, I definitely remember that.
Yep. The big move, I think at the end of the year, the biggest move had to be St. Brown. I think once I added him I think a week before the playoffs or the week of the playoffs, I think that kind of solidified me as probably the top two team there. But I mean, to be honest, I think the move that saved me was I think week 2 I traded Josh for Aaron Rodgers because Jordan Love went down week 1. I only had him and Baker on my roster, and I knew it. I didn't know how long his injury was going to be. It was like, what was it, quad? So that could be 1 week, 4 weeks, who knows? So I think that helped me, and that's when I realized, okay, I think once I survived that 4 weeks and he came back, I was like, okay, I have 3 quarterbacks now that I can rely on if one went down. And then, at the end of the year, getting Amon St. Brown was probably saved my season, I would say.
Yeah, because I don't know if you heard our show, kind of talking about the playoffs or all of that, any of that. But when we talked about it, your team was close, and I don't think you had St. Brown yet at that point.
No.
Then when St. Brown came over, I was like, well, it's going to be them in the finals, for sure. And then it ended up being pretty close in the semifinals. I was sorry I wasn't pulling for you. It was my wife.
I was worried that one. I was worried because it was like I was down like 0.5 points, and it was like a 3rd and 12 for the Packers. And it was at the point of the game where if they didn't get that first down, it was Malik Willis time, and he threw like a 40-yard pass, and I just won off of that because then he was out the next drive. I was like, I got lucky. Got lucky on that.
Yeah, and then she was like devastated when Jalen Hurts went down, and I was like, don't worry, your team's okay. And it came down to that close, and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, that was, I mean, she had a good team. She had a good team. She beat me earlier in the year. I mean, she had some good points, some good teams.
Yeah, so I guess, Jeremy, do you have any questions for him right now?
Questions? No. I mean, I can fully support the Amon St. Brown edition. I think the way you worded it, Tom, was exactly on point. I think that's what separated you from the contenders to the legitimate threats. I think that was a deal that you did. And again, it plays back to you handling this in a perfect dynasty format. You did trade up future draft picks and capital for this, but this is a player that's going to get you at minimum 4 to 5 years of consistent play with a quarterback who signed an extension. So you built this properly dynasty way.
I almost made that trade with Jim when Nico Collins went down, when he went on IR. I was a little worried then of what do I do, because I knew my team wasn't the top, and without Nico Collins at that point of the year, I was worried, am I going to go 2-2 down this stretch, 1-3, what will happen? And I held off on the trade because I somehow kept winning, and then somehow worked it right before the playoffs to get them.
I will ask you one question just because of the comment you made earlier.
Yeah.
This is your first dynasty year, so, I mean, you fantastic work on the championship, but let's just say in a hypothetical situation, what is your opinions toward the dynasty format versus a redraft?
I like it a little more. I just like it because I think in a redraft, when you do it every year, there's so much that can happen. The draft order changes year to year of however people determine the order of, like people doing a race or whatever it is. And a dynasty league, you can kind of, if your team first 3-4 weeks gets injured, you can okay, I mean, I'm not going to win it this year, but I can reposition myself next year to win it by doing this. And then in a redraft, I mean, it's kind of, you're falling into the luck category again. All right, where's my pick going to be? Is my first round pick going to even stay healthy to kind of get through it? And I feel like that's the big difference between a dynasty draft and the year to year is that year to year is all determined on those first 2 picks almost. And if you get bad luck with injuries or just, bad draft order, whatever it may be, it kind of can screw you over. But in Dynasty League, I feel like you can somewhat set yourself up if you're having a bad year. Like, all right, I'm going to trade these guys away and just reload for next year with, like Jim's doing with 20,000 first-round picks next year. It's, that's how I see it, but I don't know.
No, that's a good point. I mean, that's usually a lot of individuals get asked this question and they bring up different things, but that's a great point in regards to not having a ruined season. There's a lot of individuals that drafted CMC first overall this year.
Exactly.
And had him for about 3 quarters.
How many guys you bring up a good point first here. Overall that over the past 10 years, we can sit here probably almost every year. Yeah, I drafted him. He got injured week 2 and my season was over.
The season's ruined. Yeah, you wait all year for it and then it's ruined in October. It sucks.
Yep. So at least with the Dynasty, you can, I guess, look forward to next year and stuff like that. But
cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is you can always look forward to next year and still have the same players or get the picks that you need.
Yep.
To move
Or
forward.
players that you want too. If you're like, I need
Mhm.
this guy, you can mortgage your future, whatever you need to do.
Absolutely. And so you said you went from just redraft straight to dynasty, or did you do like keeper or something like that in between?
Just a regular redraft, yeah. Nothing. That's all. Kind of the same old, usual PPR whatever format. Yeah. So this was kind of my first year doing like a long term, dynasty keeper. Massive teams like we kind of got. Yeah.
So 1 for 1, are you retiring?
I have to think about it now.
No, you can't retire,
I gotta
man.
consider it.
You got to defend. You got to
Maybe go into
defend at
like
least once, man.
a consulting role, like cash in while I can.
Yeah, you got to defend, man. You got to.
Yeah, I agree. One more year at least. Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't mind you retiring and letting these players go, but
I get it.
Your team's stacked, especially starters. We always talk about focusing on starters versus bench. No offense, looking at your bench,
Yeah.
not so great.
Not so great. Yeah.
Was that due to being in the playoffs or the home stretch after all the bye weeks, or was that kind of a focal point? Let me worry about my starters, and then I'll worry about the bye weeks when they come.
Yeah, when I think when I drafted everyone and I kind of looked at the team, maybe like kind of week 1, week 2 of the season, I didn't have too much, man, who do I start? Should I start this guy or this guy? It was a clear, like, these are my starters, these are my bench guys. And I think there was one week where I had like Saquon, Jonathan Taylor on a bye. Like, I just kind of was missing a lot of people, and I was like, there's no way I'm winning. I think I scored like 117 points that week. So it kind of went back to my point where I knew I had a good core and I knew my bench wasn't there. And I mean, if I was going to be starting Ezekiel Elliott or Cordell Patterson, I knew I was in trouble, just kind of off the bat. But I mean, I had to make a couple moves. I did have to get Antonio Gibson. I got Zach Moss. Unfortunately, he got injured. But I did try to strengthen that bench as best I could. Like when Jonathan Taylor went down, I got Goodson, kind of the third string back for the Colts. So I tried my best to shore up that bench just in case anything happened. But I mean, if guys like Nico Collins, Jordan Love, those guys went down, I don't think I wasn't going to win without those guys. So I kind of knew my bench was the weak link.
Well, that's the thing that I kind of find interesting is like Nico Collins did go down for a couple weeks. Thielen didn't play for felt like ever.
He was out. He was on IR too.
Half the season, yeah.
He was kind of a guy who I like Thielen. I know he's kind of older and he's in Carolina, but I knew Carolina was going to be losing a lot. I knew he's a serviceable wide receiver if he's in year whatever, still playing. So I think he was just laying around in a late round, and every time he's played, he's helped me. And I don't think I was going to win the championship without his performance he had against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at last year with him and Bryce, like they just have a connection.
Yeah,
he was a top 10 receiver 10 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that fell off a little bit because Bryce got worse throughout the season rather than better. But he just has that connection with him. So that was a great late pick. Yeah, absolutely. Looking at your team, I never really looked at it all that in depth, to be honest with you. You think you can repeat? You worried about anybody? Who's your biggest competition?
To be honest, repeats, that's going to be tough. I mean, I think I'll be like we were talking earlier. I think I'll be maybe in the mix of it just because of the core. I mean, Jordan Love, Saquon Barkley, Nico Collins, St. Brown. I mean, those guys alone are probably going to win me games. So repeat, I don't know, but I think I should be, barring big injuries or, something crazy happening. I don't see why not. I should be in the mix of it next year.
I think it's an appropriate level of confidence. Looking at this, because again, the addition of St. Brown helped solidify that core, but just a few more bench pieces, which you can always acquire in the offseason.
Exactly.
As camp goes or anything like that. Like you do one or two, but I definitely feel you are strong enough to be a playoff team at minimum. You have that core. that these players aren't going to fall off next year. Like Barkley isn't going to fall off next year. Taylor isn't going to fall off next year. So I do believe that you stand a legitimate chance to have another run.
Yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely. One piece of advice that I would give, because I almost did it this year, kind of to a fault of my own, is if you think you have a good team and something happens where you just have a rough beginning of the year, don't sell. Be ready for next year.
Yeah,
for sure. So, man, we appreciate your time here. Was there anything else you wanted to say? Being your first Dynasty League, of course.
I mean, kind of shocked that I'm here. I don't know how I won, to be honest. Looking at Flower Power's team, but I'll take it. I'll take the wins when they come.
Absolutely, man. So it's up to you. We are going to talk about Baker Mayfield real quick.
I'll say on for Bake. Why not?
Down for Bake,
your team, for sure.
No.
So, the reason we wanted to talk about Baker, and I'm trying to pull up his stats the last 3 weeks, the playoffs. He's kind of insane. So last week he had 45.56 points. The week before, 27.07, and that was a bad week for him. And then the first round of the playoffs, 40.27. So he has scored over 100 points by himself in 3 weeks. Ended up the number 5 quarterback on the year. As pretty much a pocket passer. He showed a little bit of wheels this year, a little bit more than what he has in the past. But this is the second time in 4 quote-unquote years, I've been playing Dynasty for 3 years, that Baker is one of the linchpins of a team that won the championship. And I never understood it. So I don't know if you guys have anything you want to talk about Baker in a major way or anything like that, but those are just some of his stats. Fantasy-wise, that a 29-year-old who people wrote off 2 years ago. And now he might be a first-round pick in Dynasty Leagues. So what do you guys think?
I think I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I think Baker's been a fantastic addition to Tampa Bay. I think he got nestled in there pretty well when he came in there at the end of the year. Baker's one of those individuals, man, that this is something I've been preaching about. Baker's one of those guys that is team first. Like, he's definitely one of those locker room guys that is a good camaraderie in the locker room, and he handles a lot of different players individually. He was basically obsessed with Mike Evans hitting his milestones this year. He's been feeding him. He's been interviewed and different things. Like, that alone, him trying to feed Evans to hit those receiving records has been a fantastic addition. So even just like little things like that, having that type of player focusing on certain aspects is a huge advantage. The numbers prove it.
Yeah, and going off of that, like, that means that if you care that much about one of your teammates getting their milestone, which is an insane milestone, 1,000 yards for what, 12 years now, 11 years?
It's crazy.
Insane.
With those quarterbacks he's played with?
That's the thing. He could have gotten
you 1,500. He's just going to throw 40 interceptions. So, but that tells you how much this team, that he likes the team and the team likes him. Like, the camaraderie is insane because the team's not bad. Luckily, they're playing in the South, so they win more than they lose because of that division. But fantasy-wise, this is one of the last guys on my radar every year. So it baffles me that he ended up number 5 quarterback, and like I said, showed some wheels. Have we seen that before? Like, pretty surprised. So, Tom, he was one of the catalysts to your team, obviously. Any positive words? Anything you want to say about him?
I mean, he kind of was a unsung hero when I drafted him. Yeah, I mean, he really solidified himself as that QB2. I mean, Baker's done this since Oklahoma. He had one bad year in Cleveland because the guy stopped running on his route, throws an interception, tries to tackle him because he's such a team guy, separates his shoulder. The rest is history. Goes to Carolina. I mean, he's a baller. He's a baller. This isn't surprising to me. I mean, he's just that guy that you want on your team. You want him, Your guy gets pushed, he's going to push that guy back, He's just that guy. I love Baker. And as a former Browns fan, I love this, or as a Browns fan, I love seeing Baker do this, he's well deserved.
So a Browns fan that wants Baker to succeed. I'm
why wouldn't
surprised by that.
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, the vibes I get, it wasn't. Yeah, the vibes I get, it wasn't necessarily Baker's relationship with the fans and everything. It was more for the organization being tired of him. So I can see why the fans would want him to be successful, because it's kind of like a, hey man, you're a victim of this crap. Let's hope you do well.
He took the team to the playoffs, man. Beat their arch rival. They haven't won in 20 some odd years in that stadium, and then they ship him out of town. Like I have nothing but good things to say about Baker.
Awesome. He's one of those dudes. He's one of those dudes in the league. Like, I don't know if anyone can say anything bad. You just have some guys in the league that it's just like this wholesome dude.
Did you guys see the clip when he went to Carolina? And I think it was when Sam Darnold was there. It was training camp or whatever, and he wasn't the starter. He was playing scout team D line or whatever. I don't know if you guys ever saw that clip. He's just Sam Darnold doing a drill, and he's rushing the passer he's the D line. It's that guy. You want him on your team, the energy he brings.
And that's what I'm saying, man. He's that dude. I think you nailed it on the head the way you described it. He's just that dude, and in a fantasy world, and more importantly, in a real life NFL world, I think he's a no-brainer to have.
Back to college, the taunting with Kansas,
No, absolutely. And I guess moving forward, you kind of have to look at him as a top 10 quarterback. I didn't think I'd ever say that about him, but look who's entering. A little hiatus here while we invite one of our co-hosts, Jimmy, into the fold. Eventually.
Hey guys.
There he is.
How nice of you to join us.
Oh man, the wine and Survivor was flowing last night, so it was a good night.
Yeah, for some reason, Jimmy thought it was a good idea to start at 7:30 his time, New Year's Day. So I've been waking up. He ended up being the only one who didn't get that done. But
selfish.
I've been waking up at 7, but I was definitely up past midnight last night.
Oh, big boy.
Yeah.
Well, you missed the entire conversation that we had with Tom, which was a good one, and probably could have taken notes because he's 1 for 1, and we are what we are. So
I don't like how we've been doing this for 6 years, and these new people keep coming in and winning, just like the Pittsburgh side of things in our other league.
Beginners luck, man. That's how they keep you in.
I
know. We finally lost though in Pittsburgh, which we'll talk about next week. Hopefully, we'll be able to have that champ on. But anything you wanted to say about Baker being basically Tom's number one guy, especially in the playoffs?
No, I mean, sign that extension. I mean, I think he's been better than advertised. He's someone that won't go super high in a startup, but he's your perfect QB2, QB1. And, I mean, you complement him with a running quarterback a little more higher upside, and I think you have a perfect QB room. Plus, he ran more this year than he has in the past too, so that's helped as well. And when you get, especially early when it's, you get a bump for every running first down, he's done that quite a bit this year, so that's a nice little bonus as well. So, yeah, he's QB5, and that's been nice. So, I mean, he's definitely, like I said, for me, that's someone I'd probably be selling high and see what I can get and keep moving things around.
You want to sell everybody,
Jim? Wait. Jim wants to sell a piece? What? Wild. That's the successful piece Jim wants to move.
How many first-round picks are you asking for Baker, Jim?
I don't know. But this is this could be the CJ Stroud effect of last year, where he was QB1 and keep trade cut, and look how far he's fallen. I'd rather sell high, and I could find that production elsewhere. But yeah, this is the highest it's probably ever going to be value-wise.
No, I do agree with that. He probably won't be valued much higher than what he is now. I don't think he can with how little he does run. But selling one of the pieces that won you the championship, it's got to be.
Who am I going to replace them with?
Right.
Exactly. If you're in a,
you have to downgrade and get a piece.
I would have to draft a QB, and who knows?
I'm not saying just sell him for picks, but I mean that's where like what other quarterback could I pivot to? Maybe lose a little bit of production, but get some extra pieces that I can move around. I think that's the thing. The challenge with a 14-team league is, I think depth will always be a concern with every team. And how do you find 10 starters every year? I think that's going to be a challenge for all of us. And I think these are the moves that you have to make in a 14-team league. Is okay. Yes, love Baker. That's great, but can I pivot down? And I don't know which quarterback I pivot down to, but could I, sell him at his all-time high, but still find that production in a different quarterback and get a little piece back or something? Those are the moves I'm always going to be trying to make, especially in a 14-team league.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't know if anyone else had anything else they wanted to talk about with Baker. This just proves to me, especially with how Sam Darnold's played this year, Bryce Young coming on a little bit, these high-pick quarterbacks, if you give them some time, they will perform eventually. They also have to be in the right situation, too. And Baker's definitely found the right situation for himself in his dynasty.
And that kind of play, not to kind of spin too much here, but I don't know if it was Tom Brady that was saying it or Nick Saban, but they were talking about this nil thing and how college quarterbacks aren't having anywhere to develop. Like, these guys are bouncing back and forth, or they're coming out of college early. These guys ain't having any time to develop into a program or develop with any type of team, and they're coming out a lot more green than what they were, say, 5-6 years ago, because these guys have had minimal development, bouncing in between different schools or trying to leave early, focused on that nil money.
Yeah, and I mean,
well, you look at it too. Like, you look at the Mannings, like they want Archie to stay in school because there's a lot of data around like you got to get at least 20 starts in college to find success in the NFL. And quarterbacks that don't have that, they're not finding success. They're not giving time to develop. Like, you look at the Colts and Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
like, it's a shame. Like, you knew he was young. You knew he needed experience, and you bench him in his first full season. Like, yeah, no wonder you're missing the playoffs. No wonder you're messing with a prospect again. Like, because the NFL coaches are on such a short leash. The GMs, like, they don't have time to wait for these players to develop, and that's what's killing these quarterbacks.
NFL is not a developmental league.
No, but these quarterbacks need time to develop. There's so many things on their plate with routes and hot routes, and how to shift the line and reading things and knowing the plays and be able to call the plays. There's too many things on their plate.
You look at the quarterbacks that have performed very well, and I go back to Green Bay. They've had basically three quarterbacks for 30, 40 years. And it's because they groom them before they start. You look at Tom Brady. He sat behind Bledsoe, even though Bledsoe ended up getting hurt his rookie year. You look at Mahomes. He sat for a year behind Alex Smith. Now, Alex Smith may not be one of our favorite quarterbacks, but good enough quarterback, right? So there's something to be said, like, why Anthony Richardson, this still baffles me, why Anthony Richardson was able to start, why they had him start only playing 13 games in Florida. What those 13 games you saw made you think he was a starter in the NFL right now? I don't know. But now he's being talked about as being a bust already, and he's 22? Like, that's insane to me. But it's absolutely true. Like, and obviously Brady or Belichick or Saban, they know a little bit about football, so I'm sure whatever they say, pretty important there. So this
actually, you guys think there's no patience? Like, you mentioned those guys who sat, but remember Peyton Manning's like rookie year, he threw like how many 20-something interceptions?
Yeah, they
like if that
3 and 13.
Like 3 and 13, 20-something interceptions. Think about if that happened today. Like a quarterback did that today. I mean, look what Caleb Williams is doing his first overall pick. He's not playing nearly as bad as Peyton Manning did his rookie year. And they're like, all right, Chicago's talking about blowing it up already. And it's just like,
yeah, you looked at, on top of that, they're saying Bo Nix is rookie of the year, but Caleb's putting up better numbers. He doesn't have the wins, but he's putting up better numbers.
And this is actually putting us into a good conversation for a year in review. One of the things that I see is like the have and the have-nots in quarterbacks as well. Like, you have to have quarterbacks. I was wrong, Jim. I'll admit it, okay? In Dynasty, you have to have quarterbacks. Quarterbacks will be your catalyst. And if you don't have them like I did this year, no matter how good your skill players are, there's still going to be a question on your team whether you're going to win every week or not. So that was one of the big ones for me. I don't know if Jim, since you just got on and you haven't talked as much as you normally do when you get your words in, what's your biggest takeaway from the year?
By the way, I just plugged in my new microphone, so let me know how you guys can hear me better.
You sound phenomenal, sir.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I think it's just selling draft picks. That was my hardest thing for the last couple of years. Is I just wanted to hoard all the draft picks, and they were fun. They were risky. They were, they could be Justin Jefferson. And what I realized is I like winning more. So I think that's the thing is like my philosophy on draft picks have shifted. Like I don't want to keep holding. I don't mind taking them a few years out, but I want to start spending picks. And Golf League is going to be a very interesting path for me because I want to sell them, but also I don't have many players. So it's going to be an interesting path for me on how I want to do that, but I don't want to keep hoarding picks and just taking and owning entire drafts anymore. I want to start winning and spending them. So I think that's my philosophy has shifted on that. And I've seen some people in our leagues where the philosophy hasn't shifted and they're afraid to make a big move and it's cost them. And I don't want to be that person that is afraid to make the big move and miss the playoffs because I didn't trade the 108, 109, which is most likely going to be a bust of a player.
No, that makes a lot of sense there, Jim. Tom, what about you? Since you're still on with us, we only got 5 minutes left, so you might as well stay the rest. What was one of your biggest takeaways, other than just dominating Dynasty, obviously?
Interesting to see everyone's philosophy. It feels like half the team went kind of what Jim said of hoard some picks, build for the future, and I think the other half kind of went all in and tried to win it now. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 2-3 years of where my team looks like, where Flower Power teams look like compared to Jim's and compared to Josh's, who kind of went all in, a little bit on picks and didn't win this year. I'm curious to see how it shifts in the next couple of years. If it follows like the NFL where it kind of fluctuates team to team, or if the teams are just going to stay on top, how it works.
Or if bad owners are bad owners.
And if Jim wants to trade some picks away, let me know. I'll take some of mine back.
Hey, I'll weaken you for the next 2 years. That's fine. You can have some of my picks.
Could we be having our first trade on air, right?
I'm down. I'm down to take the B card.
I do got to say, without Jim, I don't know if I win it. He forced that St. Brown trade. I was telling him, Jim, that we were talking since the Nico Collins injury.
Yeah. And, I think it worked out both sides. I was not happy being the 114, but I was not – my success in that trade will be next year in 27.
I think it's a win-win for both of us. I got my championship, and you got your picks.
Yeah, hopefully things go wrong for you next year, and I'll be happy.
And hopefully you draft like the Browns.
Possible. No one can do that.
That's hilarious. Jeremy, before we get a fight on Zoom, what's your biggest takeaways here?
I think everybody would want to fight over my takeaways, but
unfortunately it's virtual, so it won't work.
No, real quick, just the takeaway here that I have is just in general, like I said, I'm in a few leagues and each one of them's different. Just trying to obtain as much experience and education as I can. The golf league is my biggest one with 14 teams. In that format with the being 2 QB and tight end premium. So just learning the different variations and the variables of the dynasty world and how they impact and knowing each individual leagues and members.
Couldn't say it better myself, sir. All right, Jimmy, like I said, you didn't say enough words yet, so we got to get you one more minute.
I got something.
1 minute. 1 minute.
I think the golf league is going to enter this period of what happens next, right? Year one is always where we move things around and we kind of get the players we want. Now it's year 2, year 3, where it's going to be what happens next. Like, are we going to settle in? Are we going to have super teams, or are we going to have teams constantly at the bottom? So I'm excited for our golf league because I think year 2, year 3 is usually when it starts moving around and things get settled. Teams get settled with their players, and then how do they move forward next? Do we keep seeing a lot of activity like we have done, or are we going to have to start navigating a lower activity league? So I'm really curious what golf league will morph into over the next year.
Well, it has you in it. It has me in it. And Jeremy is pretty active as well. So I don't think you're the activity.
But I have basically half the picks. We can't be trading draft picks. I have most of them.
That's a good point.
Well, if you weren't sharper image pricing, you'd be able to move them more.
I don't know. I think I've done pretty well this year, moving things. So,
Let's see.
and I didn't have my coupon book, so I think we're okay.
Hey, I know Tom's happy that you moved somebody. So
Yeah. 'Cause he loses round one without Amon.
yeah, probably.
I probably
Yeah,
moved
we
round
were-
two.
Yeah, we were talking
without,
about that, but you decided to sleep in. So
Well, I still made it. I made my grand entrance. Well, I'm just more curious, Mickey. Did this one get recorded? That's what I'm more curious about.
oh,
That's rude. Yes, it did. I believe.
nice, Jim, nice,
Yeah,
nice,
Now
nice.
I'm worried.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well, hopefully this one recorded. But we're out of
Thanks,
time.
Tom.
But for our guests today, Tom, Jimmy, and Jeremy, my name's Mickey. This is the Dynasty from the Mountaintops. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Apple, Podbean. We also are going to have some social media coming in the next couple months here. So we'll keep you updated on that. Watch out for that. And we want to say Happy New Year and thanks for listening.